So whatever we are learning this week, it's very important. So heart, what do you say? The heart of the B.Ed program, micro teaching is the heart of a B.Ed program. So everyone should, what do you say, undergo this training, and everyone must understand all the, what do you say, components of a different skills, and you must be familiar and expert in that, what do you say, that skills and components, and you can make use of in a macro teaching in regular, right? When you want to become a most efficient and effective teacher, you must know all these type of skills of teaching. It's very, very important. This skills very important. That's why you must very carefully listen to the class, understand the components, and practice, and also, what do you say, acquire knowledge about the skills and components, and you have to incorporate in your classroom teaching. It's very, very important. So for that way, it's when you learn these things, automatically other things will become easy. Teaching will become very easy once you learn all these skills. Okay, fine. Anyway, let us try to understand about what is micro teaching and other things. So before going to about the meaning of micro teaching and definitions of micro teaching, let us try to understand about the general trend and information about the teacher education and teacher training institutions. What actually teacher training institutions, what they were doing in the early 60s, and what was the problem, right? Here, now you all know that, right? The quality of the nation is judged by the quality of its citizens. Normally, so it depends upon the quality of citizens, right, who are all there in the, in the society. So that will be again based on that education that will be judged. That means when we say advanced countries, so advanced countries, all people are well educated. That way, so education will decide about the citizens, good citizens again decide about the education. Later, it is mostly determined by the education system, which is practicing in our schools and colleges. You all know that, right? Again, the quality of citizens depends upon the quality of education system in the schools and colleges. Right? Which in turn, it is decided by the what type of teachers which we are injecting into the classroom teaching. See, that means here the quality of teachers, again the quality of citizens based on the quality of education. Again, quality of education depends upon the quality of teachers which we are there in the, which we inject into the classroom teaching. It's very important because the efficient and effective teachers, that means quality teachers which bring out quality citizens. Again, the quality teachers depends upon the quality of teacher education programs in the teacher training institutions. That means here, what type of teacher training programs which you have adopted in teacher training institutions? Because so all the time, whenever you are training the children, you must adopt good training techniques, good training programs. When you have a good training programs for the student teachers, automatically the teachers will become good and quality teachers. So that way, that will be again the type of program what we adopt in the teacher training schools. Right. So you all know that the quality of preparation can be improved in teacher training institutions. So based on something problem disturbance. Okay. And these are another thing is these are all general information. You understand enough. So you need not copy these things. I tell you where to copy. And these are all my classes only full general information about micro teaching and meaning of micro teaching and about cycle and other aspects of micro teaching. Right? It not worry about this. Next classes, the orient skills, that is more important. Okay? So that way, anyway, you must understand these things also. It is also important. Right? That's why I told you the quality of citizens. That means the nation. That's what we say. Teachers are the nation builders. The quality of the teachers, the quality of education if you provide, again, their quality of citizens come out. then the quality of citizen will be made. The nation is a advanced and developed country. Okay, that is this thing. See, in this way, how can we improve about the teacher training institutions? So based on this, several innovations have been done. Several people have done a research on these things. So they have found out some of the design. There have been some designs somehow towards this end, right? Some program which we wanted to introduce, like the way they have suggested, some program. One such training is is micro teaching. One such about the training design is micro teaching, right? See, educationists, psychologists, administrators, and many politicians very much they have expressed about the dissatisfaction regarding the teacher education system in the early 60s. So in the 1960s, before that, it was very much problem in the teacher training institutions, because what to provide training, how to give a training, what a program to be incorporated. The teachers were coming out from the in the teacher training institutions. They were not very much quality teachers. They were not very good teachers. So that way what happens, see, because of the training programs were not adopted, training programs are not adopted. That's why these educationists, administrators and politicians, scientists, many people are disappointed. They have a dissatisfaction regarding about the teacher training institutions. Then this situation is in abroad is not very much different. You all know that. See, during that time it was not exactly different from whatever exists in India. So both the places in India and in developed countries also same thing, same situation was prevailing. Right here now they have conducted studies. Many people have conducted studies in India as well as in abroad. So what they have come to the conclusion? They have drawn some conclusion. They have drawn some inferences. What is the inferences? One is, there is no consensus regarding procedures followed in various aspects of student-teacher training. That means, say, they have not come to any consensus, any common understanding about the procedures followed in various teacher training institutions. Because every teacher training institution, they were following their own way of training the teachers. That way, there was no consensus, there was no uniformity in the teacher training institution. There was one finding. Then, no research evidences that present day teacher education is ineffective. So again, another aspect is, right, so even they cannot say this teacher training is ineffective. That means you are not preparing a good teachers. That also not what they found out, though these teaching training programs also not ineffective. So that way they found out. So there to some extent it was effective. The teacher educators are not clear about the objectives of training. You know that the teacher training institutions, that means here whatever they provide training, whatever they give a training, that means the training which will be no purpose. What to train, how to train, or about what are our main objective, what is our main aim of training the teachers. That means they were not clear about all these things. They were not clear about all these things. Right. Regarding the teaching methods followed in teacher training colleges, it may be said that there is no relationship between what the teacher, educator follow and what they preach in the schools. That means, see, whatever we train in the B.Ed colleges, whatever we train in the teacher training institutions, so that means we preach something they may not be able to follow in the regular classroom teaching. So this was not this was happening. That means there is no relationship between whatever we preach and whatever they teach in the schools. So these things they found out that it was not, there is no relation between these things. Then you all know that. So during training the teachers, we all send them for about the practice of lessons. When they practice about teaching lessons, that means so supervision will be conducted. Supervision will be done by the teachers. When they are supervising the lessons, that means there is a haphazard in the supervisions and undiscriminating. You all know that, because when they supervise lessons, they were not properly supervising and providing a feedback to the students, and this was undiscriminating. So this was another findings. Then feedback regarding the teacher training programs is subjective and impressionistic. So here it means whatever the feedback which you provide, normally what happens, it will be a very partial in nature. very partial in nature. That means very subjective. So biased judgment. That when you provide feedback, that feedback was not correct. There was not objective feedback. Objective. So that is the things, right? Now here, Kannada students, simultaneously I will tell you Kannada. So today let us try to understand what ಅನುಬೋಧನೆ ಅಥವಾ ಸೂಕ್ಷ್ಮ ಬೋಧನೆ. ಅನುಬೋಧನೆ ಅಥವಾ ಸೂಕ್ಷ್ಮ ಬೋಧನೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ, ರೈಟ್? ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅನುಬೋಧನೆ, ಸೂಕ್ಷ್ಮ ಬೋಧನೆ ಇಲ್ಲೇನಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅವಶ್ಯವಾಗಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಂತ ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಆ ಒಂದು ದೇಶದ ಪ್ರಗತಿಯನ್ನ ನಿರ್ಧರಿಸುತ್ತೆ. ಈ ಪ್ರಗತಿ ನಿರ್ಧರಿಸುವಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯ ಉಪಾಧ್ಯಾಯರು ನಮ್ಮ ಈ ತರಗತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಪಾಠ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಉತ್ತಮ ಉಪಾಧ್ಯಾಯರು ಶಾಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅಥವಾ ಕಾಲೇಜಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಮಾತ್ರ ಉತ್ತಮ ಏನಂತ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಗಳನ್ನ ತಯಾರು ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಯಿಂದ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ನಾವು ಕೊಡತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ಏನಂತೀವಿ ಟ್ರೈನಿಂಗ್, ತರಬೇತಿ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ತರಬೇತಿ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣದಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಲೇಜುಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಉತ್ತಮವಾದ ಒಂದು ಏನಂದ್ರೆ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳನ್ನ ಹಾಕೊಂಡು ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ತರಬೇತಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರಶಿಕ್ಷಣಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಸರಿಯಾದ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಟ್ರೈನಿಂಗ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಉತ್ತಮ ಶಿಕ್ಷಕರಾದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಉತ್ತಮ ಶಿಕ್ಷಕರಾದಾಗ ಶಾಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಉತ್ತಮ ಪ್ರಜೆಗಳನ್ನ ಅವರು ಏನಂತೀವಿ ನಿರ್ಮಾಣ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಇದು ಯಾವುದೇ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದೇ ತರ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ಇರ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಬೇರೆ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಡ್ ಕಂಟ್ರೀಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲದರಲ್ಲೂ 1960ರಿಂದ ಹಿಂದೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಈ ಒಂದು ಎಜುಕೇಶನ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಟೀಚರ್ ಟ್ರೈನಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಎಜುಕೇಷನಿಸ್ಟ್, ಸೈಕಾಲಜಿಸ್ಟ್, ಮನೋವಿಜ್ಞಾನಿಗಳು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಶೈಕ್ಷಣಿಕ ತಜ್ಞರು, ತತ್ವಜ್ಞಾನಿಗಳು ಇವರೆಲ್ಲ ತುಂಬಾ ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಡಿಸಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಆಗಿತ್ತು. ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ಸರಿಯಾದ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ತರಬೇತಿ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಸರಿಯಾದ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರಿಗೆ ತರಬೇತಿ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸರಿಯಾದ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಉಪಾಧ್ಯಾಯರನ್ನ ನೀವು ತಯಾರು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನೋ ರೀತಿ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಡಿಸ್ಸ್ಯಾಟಿಸ್ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಇತ್ತು. ಇದು ಒಂದು ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್, ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ದ ನ್ಯೂ ಡಿಪಾರ್ಚರ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಟೀಚರ್ ಎಜುಕೇಶನ್? ಸಿ ಹಿಯರ್, ಪ್ರಶಿಕ್ಷಣಾರ್ಥಿಯ ಬೋಧನೆಯ ಹೊಸ ಆವಿಷ್ಕಾರಗಳೇನು? ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ದ ನ್ಯೂ ಫೈಂಡಿಂಗ್ಸ್? ದಟ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್, ಸಿ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ 1960 what they have done, they have tried to find out some of the new innovations to adopt in the teacher training institutions and to make our training more effective and efficient. So that way these teacher educators have frequently been questioned about the effectiveness of the teacher education program. Here normally everyone was questioning about the teacher education programs. See why you are not improved, what programs you are going to adopt. So every time they are going to question about the teacher education programs. Then they have conducted many research programs. Even then the research has not given big helping hand to the teacher training institutions. Even when they conducted research programs, even then research also that were not provided proper helping hand. That means they have not found out good training programs. So anyhow there are few innovative alternatives for the teacher educators are adopted, right? Like, so there are many things. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಶಿಕ್ಷಣಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಎಂತ ಕೊಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ತರಬೇತಿ ಉತ್ತಮವಾಗಿರ್ಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಉತ್ತಮವಾಗಿರ್ಬೇಕು, ಅದೇನಾದ್ರು ತುಂಬಾ ಉತ್ತಮವಾಗಿರ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ನಾವು ಉತ್ತಮವಾದ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮ್, ಉತ್ತಮವಾದ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳನ್ನ ತರಬೇತಿ ಶಾಲೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಸಂಶೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ನಮ್ಮ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಂತೀವಿ, ನಮ್ಮ ತರಬೇತಿ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣಕ್ಕೆ ಸರಿಯಾದ ರೀತಿಯ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳನ್ನ ಅದು ನಮಗೆ ಒದಗಿಸಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಥವಾ ಕೊಡಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಆದರೂ ಸಹ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಉತ್ತಮವಾದ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳನ್ನ ಒಂದು ತರಬೇತಿ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣಕ್ಕೆ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಯಾರು ಇವರು ಟೀಚರ್ ಎಜುಕೇಟರ್ಸ್, ಟೀಚರ್ ಎಜುಕೇಟರ್ಸ್ ಅವ್ರೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಒಂದು ಉತ್ತಮವಾದ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಅವ್ರೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಆವಿಷ್ಕಾರ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಅವು ಯಾವ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳು ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಒನ್ ಈಸ್ ಕಾಂಪಿಟೆನ್ಸಿ ಬೇಸ್ಡ್ ಟೀಚರ್ ಎಜುಕೇಶನ್ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮ್, ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮೆನ್ಸ್ ಬೇಸ್ಡ್ ಟೀಚರ್ ಎಜುಕೇಶನ್ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮ್, ರೋಲ್ ಪ್ಲೇಯಿಂಗ್, ಸೆಲ್ ಕನ್ಫ್ರಂಟೇಷನ್, ಮೈಕ್ರೋ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಸಚ್ ಅದರ್. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸುಮಾರು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನ ಅವ್ರೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಕಂಡುಹಿಡಿತಾರೆ. ಆ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಕಾಂಪಿಟೆನ್ಸಿ ಬೇಸ್ಡ್ ಟೀಚರ್ ಎಜುಕೇಶನ್ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳ ಅವರ ಒಂದು ಏನು ಪ್ರಭುತ್ವ, ಅವರ ಒಂದು ಏನಂತೀವಿ, ಅವರ ಸ್ಕಿಲ್, ಕೌಶಲ್ಯ, ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಒಂದು ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಕಾಂಪಿಟೆನ್ಸಿ ಬೇಸ್ಡ್ ಟೀಚರ್ ಎಜುಕೇಶನ್. See that means competency based teacher education means here, see the competition, the skills and abilities, based on the abilities, based on the skills, the teacher, the training was given to the teacher, students. training was given. Then the performance-based education program, that means based on about how the teacher is going to perform some activity, performing some tasks, some abilities, some skills, right? Based on that, they decide about the performance. So they are giving so much training based on that performance, and they are preparing the teachers. Then role playing. Role playing is mainly about that. You all know that. So the person who is going to acting based on some particular theme, particular story, particular epics, and based on some other characters. These characters are displayed by the teacher through this. That means when they applied use a role playing, then we can make effective teaching. You can make children to understand very effectively. Role playing, you all know that means when you want to teach about the Gandhiji's this thing. So as the teacher will play as Gandhiji, even dressing, even other things about the acting, all these things, they're role playing. So this role playing was an effective program on the students. That also done it. Then self-confrontation. That means about the personal example of a teacher, about keeping all about whatever the personal experiences and other things, and self-confrontation in front of children while teaching the content. That is one type of teacher training programs. Then the micro teaching. Right, micro teaching also one of the important program. Say as it is, it is a training as to approach to the teacher training institutions. It is an approach as in the teacher training institutions where we train the teachers in about the teaching skills in the teacher training institutions. That way, so micro teaching is also one of the. Likewise, many programs they devise assignment, their method, and many methods they have used, tried out, and based on that, they were training the children. They devised some of the new methods during early 60s. Yes, tell me. Tell me, good morning. Competency-based education program is based on the individual teacher trainee skills and abilities and the competencies. Like that way, they train, they provide some activities, provide some sort of content or some type of activities to children, and based on the competency. Competency, that means say one who is possess some of the abilities. So I possess ability in singing or doing dancing. So based on that we train children. Likewise, one who is having some other training of some other about the skill, some maybe dramatic or explanation, like that way based on some competencies. Like even performance based also, that is based on some type of activity. Performance, how we perform some activity. When we give activity, so that means the taking a time, the quality or the effectiveness, accuracy in our activity. So based on whatever you perform in some type of activities. Maybe in the content, conducting experiment or doing some teaching some subject matter. So based on that, that is a type of program what we have used. So now we are not using all these programs. Now it is only that time they have devised. So these type of very difficult, they were not specifically training. It is not a general training for all the children. It is only some specific students, above average children, one type of training, or average children, another type of training. Like that way, they have made a segregation of different types of programs for the teacher trainees. Role playing, that role playing you understood. Self-confrontation means, see what happens many a times. Now we are talking about the biographies of some people. That means, see these biographies and about talking about teachers who is involving some things in the personal experiences. Explain to the children. Personal example of a teacher or a personal experience of a teacher, which will be if you go on talking in the classroom, that will be more effective on the children, right? Children, and that means teacher training. So this is training, in turn the teachers should adopt same type of training in the schools. That way, self-confrontation. So understanding ourselves, what are the behaviors, what activities, what are our values. Like that way, when you talk about on our own, automatically the children will be effective. Because the teachers, many times, all the time, the students will believe the teachers. With so much belief, whatever the teachers say, the children definitely they believe. You all know that, right? at home, even if you are educated, you are a teacher, if you are your child go to school, your the teacher has taught some about writing some alphabets, writing something sentence. If they will come and write only that way, if you take no, not that way, you have to write this way, then they will not listen to you. They will listen to only the teachers. That way, so this self-confrontation which influences to the great extent on the students. That way, all the teachers to adopt this technique in teaching. In the training programs, we train the children, student teachers. In turn, that the student teachers will go and teach in the schools. Then micro teaching, we are going to learn about in detail about the micro teaching and other programs, right? Among them, the most popular ones are micro teaching and also competency performance based teacher education programs. So CBTE and also PBTE, that means so competency based teacher education and performance based teacher education. And it is not much important, only micro teaching. Later we will go, these are some of the different programs. I am telling you about the history of micro teaching, right? So now from here after, it's very important introduction to micro teaching. ಅನುಬೋಧೆಯ ಒಂದು ಪೀಠಿಕೆಯನ್ನು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಈ ಒಂದು ತರಗತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೇನು ಕಲಿತೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಈ ತರ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಹೇಳಿದಿಷ್ಟು ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಆಲ್ ಜನರಲ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಆರ್ ಜನರಲ್ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಆಫ್ ಮೈಕ್ರೋ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಅಂಡ್ ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ಸ್ ವಿಚ್ ವರ್ ಅಡಾಪ್ಟೆಡ್. ಸೊ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ you all know that, see, this is okay, fine, later we'll see, right? Here, see, in this class we are trying to understand about what is teaching and also its feature, right? So what is teaching? We are doing general teaching and we are trying to understand about the meaning of micro teaching. Next is meaning of micro teaching and about its features, that also we are going to learn about the features of micro teaching. Then micro teaching cycle we learn that what actually the micro teaching cycle is and how we are following the cycle and how we are going to train the children about the completing one stage to other stage, like that we will tell you. Then stages and duration of micro teaching. What are the stages and duration of micro teaching? Then brief description of each stage. So all each stage we are trying to understand about the each stage. Then word of caution. Then skills selected for orientation and demonstration. Right. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕನ್ನಡದವರು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅನುಬೋಧನೆಯ ಪೀಠಿಕೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಈ ಒಂದು ತರಗತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೇ ಕಲ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬೋಧನೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು, ಬೋಧನೆಯ ಗುಣಲಕ್ಷಣಗಳೇನು, ನಾವು ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯ ತರಗತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಗೆ ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಅದರ ಗುಣಲಕ್ಷಣಗಳೇನು ಅಂತ, ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಮತ್ತೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಹಲೋ, ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಈಗ ನಾವು ಮುಂದೆ ಏನ್ ಕಲಿತೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡೋದು, ಪ್ರತಿ ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ನು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ, ನೀವು ಕಲ್ತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರ್ಬೇಕು, ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮೈಕ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಅನುಬೋಧನೆಯ ಅರ್ಥ ಮತ್ತು ಅದರ ಗುಣಲಕ್ಷಣಗಳನ್ನು ತಿಳ್ಕೊತೀವಿ. ನಂತರ ಅದರ ಇದು ಅನುಬೋಧನೆಯ ಚಕ್ರ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು, ಅನುಬೋಧನೆಯ ಚಕ್ರ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಉಪಾಧ್ಯಾಯರು, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್, ಪ್ರಶಿಕ್ಷಣಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು, ನೀವು ಈ ಅನುಬೋಧನೆ ಕಲಿಯುವಾಗ ಆ ಒಂದು ಸೈಕಲ್ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಒಂದು ರೌಂಡ್ ಬರಬೇಕು. ಅವಾಗಲೇ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ನಾವೊಂದು ಏನಂತೀವಿ ಅನುಬೋಧನೆಯ ಏನು ಆ ಸ್ಕಿಲ್ಸ್ ಕಲ್ತ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು, ಕೌಶಲ್ಯಗಳನ್ನ ಕಲ್ತ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು. ಸ್ಟೇಜಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಡ್ಯೂರೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಮೈಕ್ರೋ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ಹಂತಗಳು ಮತ್ತು ಅದ್ರ ಸಮಯವನ್ನ, ಅನುಬೋಧನೆ ಹಂತಗಳು ಮತ್ತು ಅದರ ಸಮಯ ಎಷ್ಟು ಸಮಯ ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಬ್ರೀಫ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಈ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹಂತಗಳ ವಿವರಣೆ, ಮತ್ತೆ ವರ್ಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಾಷನ್, ಏನು ನಾವು ಪ್ರಿಕಾಷನ್ಸ್ ತಗೋಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ. ನಂತರ ಯಾವ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯಗಳನ್ನ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಕಲಿಸ್ತೇವೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಏನಂತೀವಿ ಡೆಮಾನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ತಿಳ್ಕೊತೀವಿ ಈ ಕ್ಲಾಸಲ್ಲಿ, ರೈಟ್? ಈಗ see now what is teaching, let us try to understand what is teaching. So teaching is a complex process. It's very complex because, see, why do we say it's a complex process? In teaching, what we do, we are trying to impart information, but it's impart knowledge among the students. We transact information. We put across some of the things, whatever we learned, and we are trying to make the children to learn what is the subject matter. When we make them to learn about subject matter, what do we do? See, that includes lot of things which are involved in the teaching program. That's why we say it's a complex program, complex activity. So teaching involves, what are the teaching normally which involves? It is a mainly, you all know that when we are teaching to the group of children, the group of children will be more than 30, 40, 50, 60, maybe 80, 100, depends. So strength will be very high, big classroom. So there is a big class, that means, so we have to, manage all the children. Then, so what is the duration? Normally, whenever we are teaching, so maybe 30 minutes or 45 minutes or maybe 1 hour, we keep on teaching, keep on talking to the children. So we go on teaching to the content. And several teaching components are used. That means here many teaching skills are used. So here what are the teaching skills? Mainly you all know that. So whenever we are teaching to the children subject matter, because teacher has to do many work, many things. He has to act things. That means he has to ask questions, introduce a lesson. He has to keep on talking about, give examples to the children, and about the probing to the children whatever the students have understood, and about the illustrate. Give an illustration to the students, analogy, and about using a blackboard, but many more things. So that means teacher has to act many things during this time. That's why we say it is a complex process. The teacher using several teaching skills: questioning, reinforcement, simulation, illustration, giving examples, right, and using a blackboard, and many more things which are used in during this process. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬೋಧನೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ಬೋಧನೆ ಇದು ಒಂದು ಸಂಕೀರ್ಣ ಪ್ರಕ್ರಿಯೆ. ಯಾಕೆ ಬೋಧನೆ ಒಂದು ಸಂಕೀರ್ಣ ಪ್ರಕ್ರಿಯೆ ಅಂತೀವಿ? ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಅನೇಕ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಹೆಚ್ಚು ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು, 30 ಇರ್ಬೋದು, 40 ಇರ್ಬೋದು, 50 ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ 80 ಅಥವಾ 100 ಎಷ್ಟೋ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ಇಲ್ಲಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ಇದು ತರಗತಿ ತುಂಬಾ ದೊಡ್ಡದಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ನಾವು ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಪಠ್ಯವನ್ನ, ವಿಷಯವನ್ನ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗೆ ಮುಟ್ಟಿಸಬೇಕು ಅಂದಾಗ ಉಪಾಧ್ಯಾಯ ಅನೇಕ ರೀತಿಯಾದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಕೌಶಲ್ಯಗಳನ್ನ ಉಪಯೋಗ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಏನು ಕೌಶಲ್ಯಗಳು? ಹಲವು ಬೋಧನಾ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯಗಳು. ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ? ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಕೇಳೋದಿರ್ಬೋದು, ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಪೀಠೆ ಕೊಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಉದಾಹರಣೆ ಕೊಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ದೆನ್ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಕೇಳಬೇಕು, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಮೋಟಿವೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಆ ಹುಡುಗರನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಅವರ ಗಮನವನ್ನು ನಿಮ್ಮೆಡೆ ಸೆಳಿಬೇಕು. ಎಷ್ಟು ಇದಿರ್ತವೆ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ, ಈ ಥರ ಎಲ್ಲ ಉಪಾಧ್ಯಾಯ ಈ ಸಮಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಅವನು ವರ್ತನೆಗಳನ್ನ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಅದೃಷ್ಟಿದೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇದು ಸಂಕೀರ್ಣ ಪ್ರಕ್ರಿಯೆ. And class situation, you all know that. So this situation in the classroom is a very this thing. What is this situation? You all know that. So teacher will be, our classrooms normally it will be heterogeneous. What is heterogeneous? Heterogeneous will be a children which are all mixed with a different type of backgrounds, different type of things, different type of intelligence, maybe average, below average, above average, right? And difference of social backgrounds, and different types of problems, right? That way, what you can say, to bring all these children together, your teaching should reach to this thing. That means you have to manage average, above, and heterogeneous children. When you are able to manage all these things, so that means that situation becomes very difficult. That's why you say it's a complex process. Then use of blackboard. When you are using a blackboard, teacher has to write important points on blackboard, draw diagrams, and draw graph, and draw map, and many more things, and where to use the color chalk. Like that way, lot of things which are involved in writing using a blackboard. And student control, you all know that. So there will be naughty students, very difficult to control them. The children are not interested to study and they'll make noise. Managing a classroom, teacher has to see, apart from teaching, using all these skills and about all the other aspects, then teacher has to control students. Again, control becomes difficult. Management of students. And using several concepts. So teacher teaches many concepts, that means many subunits. That means teaching about conducting experimentation, demonstrations, and teaching about many content. For all these things, what happens? He has to keep eye on all these type of content, what to teach, then how to present all these things. Several concepts. And organization of teaching aids. That means teacher has to make use of different types of teaching aids. Because when the teacher is teaching, say when to use teaching aid, what type of models to be used, dummy models, working model, charts, maps, and many more things. So that means using, so simultaneously while teaching, the teacher has to make use of all these things to convey meaning or make the children to understand in an effective way. So what the teacher has to do, teacher has to make use, prepare all these things, and make use in between teaching while teaching the lessons. So that way it is a very much complex process. Teaching is a complex process because these are all the things which are involved in the teaching, right? So because of what happens here, that is a complex process. During 1 hour or a 45 minutes, teacher has to do many things. That's why it is a complex process. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಬೋಧನೆ ಸಂಕೀರ್ಣ ಪ್ರಕ್ರಿಯೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಪ್ರಕ್ರಿಯೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ತರಗತಿಯ ಗಾತ್ರ ದೊಡ್ಡದಿರುತ್ತೆ. ನಾವು ಉಪಯೋಗ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಬೋಧನಾ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯಗಳು ಅನೇಕ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯಗಳನ್ನು ಉಪಯೋಗ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ. ಮತ್ತು ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ತರಗತಿಯ ಸನ್ನಿವೇಶ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅನೇಕ ರೀತಿಯಾದಂಥ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ದಡ್ಡರಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಬುದ್ಧಿವಂತರಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳನ್ನು ಒಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ತಗೊಳ್ಬೇಕು. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಬೋಧನೆ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬರಿಗೂ ಮುಟ್ಟಬೇಕು. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಬೋಧನೆ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ತಿಳುವಳಿಕೆ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಬೋಧನೆ ಬರೀ ಒಬ್ಬ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ಗೆ ಸೀಮಿತ ಆಗಿರಬಾರ್ದು. ಈ ಒಂದು ಸನ್ನಿವೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಉಪಾಧ್ಯಾಯ ತುಂಬ ಕ್ಲಿಷ್ಟಕರವಾಗಿ ಅವನ ಆ ಒಂದು ಸಿಚುಯೇಷನ್ನ, ಆ ಒಂದು ಸನ್ನಿವೇಶವನ್ನು ಏನಂತೀವಿ ಫೇಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಅನೇಕ ರೀತಿಯಾದಂಥ ಎಲ್ಲ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅವ್ರ ಬೋಧನೆ, ಅವರ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅವರ ಏನಂತೀವಿ ಶೈಕ್ಷಣಿಕ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಯಾವುದೇ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಅವರ ಎಲ್ಲ ಗುಣಮಟ್ಟ ನೋಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಮತ್ತು ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ಕಪ್ಪೋಲಗೆಯನ್ನು ಹೇಗೆ ಉಪಯೋಗ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ನೀವು ಈ ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡುವ ಸಮಯದಲ್ಲೇ ನೀವು ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಕಪ್ಪೋಲಗೆಯನ್ನು ಉಪಯೋಗ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಇದ್ರ ಜೊತೆಲಿ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಕೇಳಬೇಕು, ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಉದಾಹರಣೆ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು, ಅಥವಾ ಇನ್ನು ಏನೇನು ಬೇರೆ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯಗಳನ್ನ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಅವೆಲ್ಲ ಉಪಯೋಗ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ನೀವು ಕಪ್ಪೋಲಗೆಯನ್ನು ಉಪಯೋಗ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಅಂದರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಏನು ಬರವಣಿಗೆ ಯಾವ ಮುಖ್ಯಾಂಶಗಳನ್ನು ಬರೀಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಯೋಗದ ಒಂದು ಏನು ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಬರೀಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಆಯಿತಾ. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ನೀವು ಗ್ರಾಫ್ ಬರೀಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಮ್ಯಾಪ್ ಬರೀಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಈ ಥರ ಎಲ್ಲ ನೀವು ಕಪ್ಪೋಲಿಗೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೀಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಈ ಥರ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ನಂತರ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳನ್ನು ಹತೋಟಿಗೆ ತಗೋಬೇಕು. ನೀವು ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ತುಂಬ ತುಂಟ ಹುಡುಗರಿದ್ದಾಗ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಬೋಧನೆ ಹುಡುಗರು ಗಲಾಟೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಅವ್ರನ್ನೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಸಮಾಧಾನಗೊಳಿಸಿ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಹತೋಟಿಗೆ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಂಡು ನಂತರ ನೀವು ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಬೋಧನೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಮುಟ್ಟುತ್ತದೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಉಪಾಧ್ಯಾಯ ಎಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. 45 ನಿಮಿಷ ಅಥವಾ 1 ಅವರ್ ಪಾಠ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಇವೆಲ್ಲವನ್ನೂ ನೋಡಬೇಕು. ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ನೀವು ಅನೇಕ ಒಂದು ಪರಿಕಲ್ಪನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ನೀವು ಈ ಪಠ್ಯ ವಿಷಯ ಅನೇಕ ಪಠ್ಯ ವಿಷಯಗಳು ಅಂದರೆ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಪರಿಕಲ್ಪನೆಗಳು, ಅನೇಕ ಒಂದು ಪರಿಕಲ್ಪನೆ ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಂತೀವಿ, ಅದ್ರ ಜೊತೆಲಿ ನೀವೇನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಅದು ಬೋಧನಾ ಉಪಕರಣಗಳನ್ನು ಉಪಯೋಗ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಬೋಧನಾ ಉಪಕರಣಗಳು ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದೇ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳ ಒಂದು ಏನಂತೀವಿ ಪ್ರಯೋಗ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಪ್ರಯೋಗವನ್ನು ಕಂಡಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅಥವಾ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ರೀತಿಯಾದಂಥ ಒಂದು ಅವನ್ನ ಚಾರ್ಟ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಮ್ಯಾಪ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅನೇಕ ರೀತಿಯಾದಂಥ ಈ ಪಾಠೋಪಕರಣಗಳನ್ನು ನೀವು ಉಪಯೋಗ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗ್ತದೆ. ಯಾವ ಸಮಯದಲ್ಲಿ, ಸರಿಯಾದ ಸಮಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಉಪಯೋಗ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಂತೀವಿ, ಈ ಬೋಧನಾ ಒಂದು ಕ್ರಮ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ತುಂಬ ಒಂದು ಸಂಕೀರ್ಣ ಪ್ರಕ್ರಿಯೆ. ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತು ಏನಾಗಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಬೋಧನೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು, ಬೋಧನೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಇರ್ತವೆ, ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಕೆಲಸವನ್ನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಒಂದು ಏನು ಒಂದು ಗಂಟೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅಥವಾ 3/4 ಗಂಟೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಇಸ್ ಎ ವೆರಿ ಕಾಂಪ್ಲೆಕ್ಸ್ ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್ ವಿಚ್ ಇನ್ವಾಲ್ವ್ಸ್ ಆಲ್ ದೀಸ್ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್. ಟೀಚರ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಟು ಆಕ್ಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಡೂ many things. So that way, so these are all things all involved. Teacher, for example, has to concentrate many aspects, right? But so it is a complex process. Now see, let us try to understand what actually the micro teaching origin, and we'll go for an understanding of the meaning of micro teaching, right? So micro teaching is a teacher training technique of the recent origin. You all know that. See, I told you, maybe performance based, competency based, role playing, self confrontation, right? When compared to all these type of programs, this micro teaching is a very important program, and all these people have adopted these things, right? So in 1960 this has been developed, and about they all use such an extent large number of teacher education training institutions in the many countries have adopted. In the 1960 all they have adopted. In 1963 Stanford University, first the university is adopted in using of micro teaching as a training technique to the, or as an approach to teacher training in the teacher training institutions. They have used this micro teaching as a training technique in the Stanford University. In 1975, so all advanced countries they have used. All advanced countries in 1973, all advanced countries they have adopted. This was one of the important training, right? Heart of the program of B.Ed course. That way they have adopted all the teacher education programs about the micro teaching technique. in 1983, right? It has been adopted in the teacher education institutions throughout the nation. In India, they have adopted this technique in the 1983, this teacher training institutions. So what actually the micro teaching? So what is the meaning of micro teaching? Let us try to understand about the meaning of micro teaching. So micro teaching is a training technique which requires the student teachers to teach a single concept, listing a specified teaching skills to a small number of pupils, and in short duration of time. What do you mean by a micro teaching? Here, see, micro teaching is nothing but it is a training technique where we train the student teacher in learning the skills. So that means the teacher training technique which requires the student teachers to teach a single concept, listing a specified teaching skills. That means here, whenever we are teaching to the children, micro teaching is mainly we are taking or selecting only one particular, single concept, single or a simple concept. Single concept. The single concept means what? Mainly we are trying to take up only one concept, one small concept, right? Then about whatever we do, it is a listing of specified learning skill. That means what? Right? That means the behavior. We are making them to train themselves about one particular skill, one particular behavior. Right? That skill will be trained among the children. So that means one particular skill will be selected to a small number of group of pupils. Small number, maybe not like 35, 40, 50. It is only 10 students, 8 to 10 students, or maybe not more than that. So this is a small group of children, 10 to 15 or maybe 10 students, small group of children in a short duration of time. So that means in a short duration of time means what? Mainly here the timing we are going to teach to the group, small group, it will be maybe 5 to 10 minutes, not more than that. So that means that will be reduced again. The duration of teaching will be reduced, and number of children will be reduced, and the selection of content will be one small concept, and also we are practicing only one behavior. That means micro teaching is a training technique which requires a student teachers to teach a specified teaching skills to a small number of pupils in a short duration of time. So that is called as a micro teaching. We'll see later, we'll learn about the definition. The most important point in micro teaching is that, see, what is the most important? What is the point in micro teaching is that it is a practiced in terms of definable, observable, measurable and controllable teaching skills. That means, see here, mainly what we are doing is, here when we are practicing the skills, those skills can be, which we can observe. We can, observe what is happening, what the teacher trainee is, learning, or what he is learning himself also, he can understand. And definable, we can define that, what exactly specific behavior is trying to learn, definable. Measurable, we can understand what extent the skill has been learnt, that also can be measurable. In what condition, which you can measure, in what condition? We can measure these conditions, and through, controlled conditions. What is the controlled conditions? That means reducing all this thing. Controlling means all we are controlled. Maybe, what the content, about the skill, about the, time, and also number of pupils. All these things are controlled in a controlled situation. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅನುಬೋಧನೆ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಶಿಕ್ಷಣಾರ್ಥಿಯ ತರಬೇತಿಯ ಒಂದು ತಂತ್ರ, ತರಬೇತಿಯ ಒಂದು ವಿಧಾನ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಧಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಶಿಕ್ಷಣಾರ್ಥಿ ಅವನು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ತರಬೇತಿ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಅವನೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮೊದಲೇದಾಗಿ ಅವನು ಒಂದು ಚಿಕ್ಕವಾದ ಒಂದು ಏನಂತೀವಿ, ಒಂದು ಪರಿಕಲ್ಪನೆಯನ್ನು ಆಯ್ಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊತಾನೆ. ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಪರಿಕಲ್ಪನೆ ಆಯ್ಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಅದು ಆಯ್ಕೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಒಂದು ಅದ್ರ ಜೊತೆಲಿ ಏನಂತೆ, ಒಂದು ಕೌಶಲ್ಯ, ಒಂದು ಒಂದು ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯವನ್ನು, ಯಾವುದು ಒಂದೇ ಒಂದು ಕೌಶಲ್ಯವನ್ನು ಉಪಯೋಗ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ, ಅದನ್ನು ಕಲಿಸೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ, ತರಬೇತಿ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ಳೋಕೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳ ಸಂಖ್ಯೆಯನ್ನು ಕಡಿಮೆಗೊಳಿಸ್ತಾನೆ, ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳ ಸಂಖ್ಯೆ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡೋದು. ನಂತರ ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಅವನ ಸಮಯ, ಬೋಧನಾ ಸಮಯವನ್ನು ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬೋಧನಾ ಸಮಯ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ, ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳ ಸಂಖ್ಯೆ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ರೈಟ್. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಅವನ ಬೋಧನಾ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯ, ಒಂದೇ ಒಂದು ಕೌಶಲ್ಯ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ತಾರೆ. ನಂತರ ಒಂದೇ ಒಂದು ಪರಿಕಲ್ಪನೆ ತಗೊಂಡು ಇವರೆಂದು ಏನಂತೀವಿ, ಒಂದು ಈ ರೂಢಿ ಬೋಧನೆಯನ್ನು ಚಿಕ್ಕದಾಗಿಸಿಕೊಂಡು ಒಂದು ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ಡ್ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅವನು ಪಾಠ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಈ ಒಂದು ಬೋಧನೆ, ಒಂದು ಅನುಬೋಧನೆ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಒಂದು ಅಂಶ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ, ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಈ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಶಿಕ್ಷಣಾರ್ಥಿ ಇದನ್ನ ಅವನ ತರಬೇತಿಯನ್ನು ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ, ಅನುಬೋಧನೆಯ ತರಬೇತಿ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ಳುವಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಈ ಒಂದು ವಿಧಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನು ವ್ಯಾಖ್ಯಾನ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎಷ್ಟರ ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಅವನು ಯಾವುದನ್ನ ಕಲಿತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ, ಏನನ್ನ ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ಕಲಿತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ, ಅದನ್ನ ನಿರ್ದಿಷ್ಟವಾಗಿ ಏನ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಡಿಫೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ವ್ಯಾಖ್ಯಾನಿಸ್ಬೋದು. ನಂತರ ಅದನ್ನು ವೀಕ್ಷಣೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಎಷ್ಟರ ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಇವನು ಇದನ್ನ ವರ್ತನೆಗಳನ್ನ ಕಲ್ತ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾನೆ, ಆ ವರ್ತನೆಗಳನ್ನ. ನಂತರ ಅದನ್ನು ಅಳತೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಅಳತೆರು ಸಹ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ನಂತರ ಅದನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ಡ್, ನಿಯಂತ್ರಿತ ಒಂದು ಸನ್ನಿವೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಅವನ ಒಂದು ಬೋಧನಾ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯಗಳನ್ನ ಅವನೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ, ತರಬೇತಿ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ತಾನೆ, ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. ನಿಯಂತ್ರಿತ ಒಂದು ಸನ್ನಿವೇಶ, ಇದು ಅನುಬೋಧನೆ, ರೈಟ್. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅನುಬೋಧನೆಯನ್ನು ಅನೇಕ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನಿಗಳು ಅದನ್ನ ವ್ಯಾಖ್ಯಾನಿಸ್ತಾರೆ, ಅದನ್ನು ನೋಡೋಣ. So the meaning of definition of micro teaching. So many people have defined about the meaning of micro teaching. So what exactly the micro teaching? Micro teaching is a training technique for the student teacher where complexities of normal classroom, right? Normal classroom teaching are reduced. So very easy, simple, right? Means so micro teaching technique is a student teacher training technique where complexities of normal classroom teaching are reduced. That means normal classroom, you all know that we discussed what is the teaching. In the teaching what happens? So many children and many concepts and about what are all the things, many skills we use and we use of many more aspects. That way all these things are controlled, duration, everything. That means, so here when we are where complexities of normal classroom are reduced. So that is micro teaching is a training technique. So that is what you say, we train the children. This is a technique where we are training the children to become an efficient and effective teacher. So this is a student teacher trains himself where complexity is reducing all these complexity of a normal classroom. So that is called as a micro teaching. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮೈಕ್ರೋ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ ಅನುಬೋಧನೆಯು ಒಂದು ಶಿಕ್ಷಕ ತರಬೇತಿಯ ತಂತ್ರವಾಗಿದೆ, ಒಂದು ವಿಧಾನ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಏನು ಅದು ಅನುಬೋಧನೆಯು ಶೈಕ್ಷಣಿಕ ವರ್ಗಸೆ ಶಿಕ್ಷಕ ತರಬೇತಿಯ ಒಂದು ತಂತ್ರವಾಗಿದೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತರಗತಿಯ ಬೋಧನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸಂಕೀರ್ಣತೆಯನ್ನು ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ. ನೀವು ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು, ದೇಶಬಲ ಬೋಧನೆ ಒಂದು ಸಂಕೀರ್ಣ ಪ್ರಕ್ರಿಯೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದೆ. ಆ ಒಂದು ಸಂಕೀರ್ಣ ಪ್ರಕ್ರಿಯೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅನೇಕ ಅಂಶಗಳನ್ನ ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಕಡಿಮೆಗೊಳಿಸ್ತೀವಿ, ಮಿತಗೊಳಿಸ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಆ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಮಿತಗೊಳಿಸಿ ನಾವು ಕಲಿಯುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಮೈಕ್ರೋ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಇದು ಏನಂತೆ, ಅನುಬೋಧನೆ ಶಿಕ್ಷಕ ತರಬೇತಿಯ ತಂತ್ರವಾಗಿದೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತರಬೇತಿಯ ಬೋಧನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸಂಕೀರ್ಣತೆಯನ್ನ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡುತ್ತದೆ. Right. Here, so micro teaching is a useful, reliable and practical technique in a training teachers. That means here, say micro teaching is a useful technique. So it is very much used in a teaching learning. It's a practicable, right? That means practically everybody can use in the classroom. So it's a very effective program. Useful, reliable. Reliable, you know, right? Reliable means it is very consistent. That means the one who is producing something, so it's consistently producing good teachers, good students, training the students. So that practical technique in a training teachers. So practically we can train, really we can train without missing anything. We can train the students. ಅನುಬೋಧನೆಯು ಶಿಕ್ಷಕರ ತರಬೇತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಉತ್ತಮ, ಸಮಂಜಸ ಮತ್ತು ಉಪಯುಕ್ತ ತಂತ್ರವಾಗಿದೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅನುಬೋಧನೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಶಿಕ್ಷಕರ ತರಬೇತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಉತ್ತಮವಾದ ತಂತ್ರ, ಉತ್ತಮವಾದ ಒಂದು ವಿಧಾನ ಮತ್ತು ಸಮಂಜಸವಾಗಿದೆ, ವಿಶ್ವಾಸನೀಯತೆ ಉಳ್ಳದಾಗಿದೆ ಮತ್ತು ಉಪಯುಕ್ತ ತಂತ್ರ ಎಂದು ತಿಳಿದಿದೆ. Then, according to Allen and Eve, what he defines about, so micro teaching is a system of controlled practice. Micro teaching is nothing but it is a system of controlled practice that makes it possible to concentrate on specific teaching behavior. So you should understand here, So mainly micro teaching is a system of controlled practice. It's a system where we are controlling everything. System of controlled practice that makes it possible to concentrate on specific teaching behavior, and to practice teaching. So practice the teaching under controlled conditions. That means when the student teacher is practicing the skills, right, under the controlled conditions. That means, so it is nothing but all the things are reduced. The children or teachers will be trying to train themselves about the in the limited duration. So controlled, that's what is controlled conditions. So here ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತದೆ, ವಿಶಾಲ ಬೋಧನೆಯ ವರ್ಗದ ಗಾತ್ರ ಮತ್ತು ವರ್ಗದ ವೇಳೆಯನ್ನು ಮಿತಗೊಳಿಸಿ ಬೋಧನೆಗೆ ಅಣುಬೋಧನೆ ಎಂದು ಕರೆಯುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ನಮ್ಮೇನಿರುತ್ತೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಶಾಲ ಬೋಧನೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯ ತರಗತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ವರ್ಗದ ಗಾತ್ರ ಇರ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ವರ್ಗದ ವೇಳೆ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅವನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಮಿತಗೊಳಿಸಿ ಒಂದು ಬೋಧನೆಯನ್ನ ಮಾಡೋದಿಕ್ಕೆ, ಅವೆಲ್ಲವನ್ನು ಮಿತಗೊಳಿಸಿ ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡೋದಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಅಣುಬೋಧನೆ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಅಣುಬೋಧನೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ರೈಟ್. So micro teaching is a teacher training technique of which requires a student to teach a single concept using a specified teaching skill to a small number of pupils in a short duration of time. So that we have learned earlier. So micro teaching is a training technique. Where we are train the children in about the skills and this thing, which requires the student teacher to teach a single concept. Select to teach a single concept, using a specified teaching behavior, plus using a specified teaching skill to a small number of pupils, in a short duration of time. That means time it will be a 10 to 15 minutes, number will be reduced and the content will be reduced, like the way. So micro teaching will be very short. It's a controlled practice. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅಣುಬೋಧನೆ ಒಂದು ಶಿಕ್ಷಕ ತರಬೇತಿಯ ವಿಧಾನವಾಗಿದ್ದು ಬೋಧನಾ ಸನ್ನಿವೇಶವನ್ನು ಸರಳಗೊಳಿಸಿ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಬೋಧನಾ ಸನ್ನಿವೇಶ ಏನಿದೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಸರಳಗೊಳಿಸೋದು. ಅದು ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಅದನ್ನ ವೆರಿ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಸರಳಗೊಳಿಸೋದನ್ನ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ, ಎಲ್ಲವನ್ನ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು. ರೂಢಿ ಬೋಧನೆಯನ್ನು ಒಂದೇ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಮಿತಗೊಳಿಸಿ. ರೂಢಿ ಬೋಧನೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು, ಅದೇ ಅಣುಬೋಧನೆಯನ್ನು ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ಅದನ್ನು ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್, ರೂಢಿ ಬೋಧನೆಯನ್ನು ಒಂದೇ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಮಿತಗೊಳಿಸಿ ಬೋಧನಾ ವೇಳೆ ಮತ್ತು ವರ್ಗದ ಗಾತ್ರವನ್ನ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ನಿಯಂತ್ರಣ ಸಮಾಗಮದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಾಧನೆ ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಸಹಾಯ ಮಾಡುವುದು. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಒಂದು ಯಾವುದೇ ನಿಯಂತ್ರಣ ಸನ್ನಿವೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಯ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರಶಿಕ್ಷಣಾರ್ಥಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅವನು ತರಬೇತಿ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು. ಈ ಒಂದು ನಿಯಂತ್ರಣ ಸನ್ನಿವೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದರ ಸಮಾಗಮದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅವನು ಇದನ್ನ ಏನಂತೀವಿ ತರಬೇತಿಯನ್ನು ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು, ಒಂದು ಸಾಧನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು. ಸಾಧನೆ ಮಾಡೋದಂದ್ರೆ ಅದೇನಂದ್ರೆ ಅವನು ಟ್ರೈನಿಂಗ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದು. So that is called as micro teaching. The most important point in micro teaching is that teaching is practiced in terms of definable, observable, measurable and controllable teaching. So this we have learned already. It is useful technique. Then it is micro teaching may be described as a scaled down teaching encounter. Very simple, very easy to understand the meaning of micro teaching. So micro teaching may be described as a scaled down teaching encounter. What do you mean by scaled down teaching encounter? Scaled down teaching encounter means it is all reducing your normal classroom teaching. This is very simple. Scaled down, keeping about that some which is reduced only 10 to 15. Some scale, whatever you have that scale, 10 to 15 minutes or 5 to 10 minutes teaching time, and 5 to 10 pupils are about the teaching of only one simple concept, and about that whatever the one particular behavior, one component, maybe an introduction, maybe only one particular behavior is practiced, one particular skill is practiced. That is so very simple. So micro teaching may be described as a scaled down teaching encounter. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯ ವಿಶಾಲ ಬೋಧನೆಯ ಒಂದು ಎಲ್ಲ ಹಂತಗಳನ್ನ ನಿಯಂತ್ರಣಗೊಳಿಸಿ ಕಡಿಮೆಗೊಳಿಸಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಬೋಧನಾ ಇದನ್ನ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ತರಬೇತಿನ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು. The complexity in teaching encounter is further reduced by, that means the complexity of all that, the process of normal classroom is reduced. The complexity in teaching encounter is further reduced by a small number of pupils. small number of pupils in a short duration of time, and the content being reduced to a single concept or a simple concept. So that you all know that reducing this and reducing all content, right? Students, duration, and also practicing the skill. So this is now you have understood about what is actually micro teaching is. I think all of you understood about what is micro teaching. Micro teaching is nothing but may be described as a scaled down teaching encountered. It is a miniaturized classroom teaching. Micro teaching is a miniaturized classroom teaching. Means what? Miniaturized classroom teaching means reduced all. See, normal classroom complexities are reduced to a small, what do you say, selecting a single content to a, what do you say, and listing of a specific behavior and small group of children in a short duration of time. That means so that the children are going to learn in a, what do you say, controlled condition. They have to practice, student teacher has to practice in a controlled condition. So that is the meaning of micro teaching. Scaled down teaching encounters, very easy. Now, complexity of normal classroom are reduced to small group of children. What is it? Selecting a small one, a single concept, and teaching a short duration of time and practicing a one single skill. See, what are the principles of micro teaching? Principles of micro teaching. So, micro teaching is based on the premise that teaching can be analyzed into various behaviors and called, what is it, teaching skill which can be practiced and controlled and evaluated. See, here teaching principles are nothing but what are the things which are involved in the micro teaching. Here mainly in the micro teaching what happens, so where we are trying to make the children to analyze a skill, analyze the behavior, what the behavior is going to practice, and about that skill will be practiced in a controlled condition, and that can be evaluated. We can evaluate, we can measure all these things. That's the one principle. Right? That means ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಅನುಬೋಧನೆಯ ಮೊದಲನೆಯ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಅನುಬೋಧನೆಯ ತರಬೇತಿಯ ಸಮಯದಲ್ಲಿ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯವನ್ನ ಅವನು ತರಬೇತಿ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ಳುವಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅವನ ವರ್ತನೆಗಳನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಮಿತಗೊಳಿಸಿ ಅವನೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ, ಅದನ್ನ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ, ತರಬೇತಿ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ತಾನೆ. ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಮೌಲ್ಯಮಾಪನ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಅಳತೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಅದನ್ನ ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು. Next, micro teaching technique is based on Skinner operant conditioning. If operant response occurs and is followed by reinforcement, successive approximation in acquiring new pattern of behavior applied to teaching, feedback, reteach pattern in the micro teaching techniques. Here, see, in a micro teaching technique, mainly it is involved about where it is conditioning the student teacher. How we are conditioning? It's an operant conditioning, stimulus and response. So how the child is going to practice in a controlled condition. So keep on trying again and again. You will be that, the teacher training, the student teacher will be conditioned based on the reinforcement, successive approximation, successive completion of that practice of that particular behavior. When the successive completion again and again, so you will be very much accomplish that particular skill. That means acquire that skill. He will become expert in that particular. That means during that giving a feedback to the children, re-feedback, re-teach. Like the way this process which goes on in a micro teaching, automatically the child will be so much conditioned and will be understanding these things. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮೈಕ್ರೋ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ನೀವು ಅಲ್ಲ ನೋಡಬಹುದು, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಸ್ಕಿನ್ನರ್ ಆಪರೆಂಟ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟಿಮ್ಯುಲಸ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅವನು ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿ ಕಲಿತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಾನೆ. ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿ ಯಾವುದನ್ನ ಅವನು ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡೋದು ಮತ್ತೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಪುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದು, ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಈ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ತಗೊಳ್ಬೋದು, ಮತ್ತೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಪುನರ್ ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡಿ ತಿರ್ಗಾ ಪುನರ್ ಈ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದು. ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಅದು ಪುನರಾವರ್ತಿಸಿ ಅವನು ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಕಲಿತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ಕೌಶಲ್ಯ ತುಂಬಾ ಸಕ್ಸಸಿವ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಅವನು ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಆ ರೀಇನ್ಫೋರ್ಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅದು ಕಲಿತದ್ದು ಖುಷಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅವನು ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಆಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಅವನು ಮೈಕ್ರೋ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಅನುಭವದನ್ನ ಕಲಿತಾನೆ. ದೆನ್ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಪ್ರೀ ಟ್ರೀಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ವಿಚ್ ಇನ್ವಾಲ್ವ್ಸ್ measuring entry behavior of the training. Here mainly, so that means where we are trying to pre-treatment, that means before going to the practice of skill, we train the children about writing episode, understanding the skill and the components, other things. So these things which involves about the entry behavior of the training. how he is going to enter, about the readiness of mind, about the practice of his attitude towards that particular thing, that can be understood. So actual treatment of behavior modification is given. That means what happens when the treatment is started, the modification of behavior is happening in the student, and you will also understand, you will also change in your behavior after undergoing this training. So post-treatment measures are obtained. It measures the reteach observation. That means whenever we are trying the, what do you say, children giving a feedback and re-feedback, teach and reteach, during this time what happens, whatever the outcome of these things at the end program, that means post-treatment will be able to understand based on the reteach observation. Right, that way the child is going to understand these things. ಇಲ್ಲೇನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಪೂರ್ವ ಚಿಕಿತ್ಸೆ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಆ ಪೂರ್ವ ಚಿಕಿತ್ಸೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅವನು ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಕೌಶಲ್ಯನ ಅವನು ತರಬೇತಿ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ಳೋಕೆ ಮುಂಚೆ ಅವನ ಮಾನಸಿಕ ಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಅಥವಾ ಹೇಗೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಕಲಿಬೇಕು, ಅದು ಹೇಗೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಅದನ್ನ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ತಗೋಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವೇನು ಆಕ್ಚುಯಲ್ ಟ್ರೀಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆದಾಗ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅವನು ಯಾವಾಗ ತರಬೇತಿ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ಳೋಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ ಅವಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅವನ ಒಂದು ವರ್ತನೆಗಳು ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಂಗೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅದರ ಒಂದು ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಒಂದು ಔಟ್ಕಮ್, ಒಂದು ತರಬೇತಿ ಮುಗಿಸಿದ ನಂತರ ಅವನ ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ಏನಿದೆ ಅದು ಯಾವುದ್ರ ಮೇಲಿದೆ, ಅದು ಅವನು ಯಾವುದೇ ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ಮುಗಿಸಿದ ನಂತರ ಆಗಿದ್ದ ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ಅದು ಹಿಂದೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಂತಹ ಇಮ್ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಪುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ಪುನರ್ ಇಮ್ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ಪುನರ್ ಪುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ಈ ತರ ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಬದಲಾವಣೆನ ನಾವು ಕಂಡುಕೊಳ್ಬಹುದು. ರೈಟ್. So these are some of the principles of micro-teaching. The difference in the measure of observation of teach and reteach will indicate the level of mastery of the behavior includes in the skill of by the trainee. That means here during this time what happens, the teacher is going to teach the lesson, teach the concept, practicing the skill, and reteach again. Sometimes feedback, re-feedback, reteach. That process, that cycle will go on. When doing all these things, he will become mastery over the skill, mastery over the behavior. When he is mastery over the behavior, automatically the child, the trainee will be developing the skill, understanding the skill. Right. Now, description of micro-teaching. It's very, very important what you are going to understand now. So now we have understood about the meaning and principles and other aspects of what is micro-teaching. Now we are trying to understand the actual process, what is involved in micro-teaching, what you have to do in the micro-teaching. Here you all know that there are many stages to be followed. There are 6 stages of micro-teaching. 6, what is it? Sessions you have to practice. What is that 6 that we are going to understand? That is a description of micro-teaching. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅನುಬೋಧನೆ ವಿವರಣೆನ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ತೇವೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ 6 ಹಂತಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಅನುಬೋಧನೆ ಹಂತಗಳನ್ನು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ತೇವೆ. 6 ಹಂತಗಳು ಯಾವುವು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮುಂದೆ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತೀನಿ. 6 ಹಂತಗಳು. ಒಂದನೇದು ಯೋಜನೆಯ ಹಂತ, ಎರಡನೇದು ಬೋಧನಾ ಹಂತ, ಮೂರನೇದಾಗಿ ಹೇಗೆ ಪುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ ಹಂತ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಪುನರ್ಬೋಧನೆ ಹಂತ, ಪುನರ್ ಪುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ ಹಂತ. ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ನಾವು 6 ಹಂತಗಳನ್ನು ನೋಡ್ತೇವೆ. ಇಲ್ಲೇನು 6 ಹಂತಗಳನ್ನು ಮುಂದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ರೈಟ್. He has already defined micro-teaching maybe is considered as, you all know that, is a miniaturized classroom teaching. It is a miniaturized class. Why? Small children, miniature, small classroom. Maybe children are less, content is less, time is less, the skill is the only one particular. That means, so it's a miniaturized classroom teaching. Right. It may be described as a scaled down teaching in crowd. It will be described scaled down. All will be reduced. Keeping the scale, reducing all the things. So that means making a small group, small things, right? By making short. That is called a scaled down teaching encounter. The following steps are generally followed. One is about here, I told you there are 6 stages. One about the planning and teaching stage. Planning stage. Here, planning and teaching. So planning stage first. Right? We'll take up the teaching in between first. Okay? Here, in the planning stage, what happens? A student teaches a small class of 5 to 10 pupils. That means when you are teaching, the first stage is what you have to plan the lesson. You have to plan. When you are planning, what are the points to be kept in mind? You have to keep the points in mind. First is small group of children. Only one particular skill is taken, and one short duration. Only 5 to 10 minutes you will be teaching. Only one skill you are practicing. So these 4 aspects you have to keep in mind. A student teacher teaches a small class, 5 to 10 pupils. It's called as a micro class. It's called as a micro class. It may be real pupils or peers acting as a pupils for 5 to 10 minutes. Here, that means the children whom you are going to teach, the students whom you are going to teach may be real pupils. That means 8th or 9th standard children you can take, or else the same peers. Peers means your friends, classmates. So the peer group, that means your classmates, your friends. Take 5 to 10 children. Right, 5 to 10 pupils. That's micro class. And about the, 5 to 10 minutes, it's a short time, short. Right. So that means you have to take a 5 to 10 minutes. Then the content of the lesson is called as a micro lesson. That means where you are taking only one concept. When you take up one particular concept, that will become a micro lesson. Is generally a single concept. Normally a single concept. The whole lesson is built around a simple teaching skill. That means the complete lesson, what happens, you are going to prepare based on the skill, the behavior which you have selected. Right. That is called as a, you will be practicing a simple teaching skill. So as to maximize the use of the behavioral components involved in that skill during teaching. That means when you are taking this thing, so when you are practicing that skill, when you are trying to understand more and more about you are familiar about the components and trying to acquire the knowledge or information about that. Means one should be very much understood about that skill and learn about those components. For that only selecting only simple skill, simple teaching. This is a planning stage. You have to plan the lesson according to this. So teaching stage. Right, a micro lesson is carefully planned on the basis of the pre-decided model. The lesson can be observed, right? See, this teaching should be done once here. Yeah. So this is about the teaching, right? When you start teaching, micro lesson carefully planned and based on pre-decided model, and the lesson. Okay. Right. Pre-decided model. The lesson can be observed either by, now you have to teach. Now you have to, whatever you have planned lesson, now you have to teach, that is teach session. In the teach session, what you have to do, you have to actually go to classroom, start teaching about whatever the prepared the model. That means pre-decided model. That means what you are writing episode. Right. When you write an episode based on the pre-decided model, then you have to teach the lesson. While teaching the lesson, what the others have to do, there will be a small group of children will be observing your class. That means here the lesson can be observed either by a supervisor or peer supervisors using specifically developed evaluation proforma. That means here, see, there are supervisors. That means who are all supervisors? Your method masters, your teachers. There are supervisors. Then you can take as a peer supervisor also. Peer supervisors are nothing but your friends, your classmates, fellow mates. They will be, again, they will also supervise your lessons. Right. So that way, using specifically developed evaluation proforma, you keep some proforma, some form. Keeping that form, you are putting tallies, you are putting some giving some number or a marks, whatever this thing. So proforma, keeping that proforma, you keep on writing, noting down all those observations. It can be recorded on a video tape, or sometime you can record this lesson as using a video tape. Right, video tape you can record through the video, or any recorder can be used, right? So you can, now mobiles are there, easy to record all your lessons because technology is advanced. Now easy, because why do we use all these things? So this because very much useful for again viewing those lessons. What are the things we have done, what mistakes we have done, and how whether we have practiced that components or not. For all these things, it is very much required. In the teach session, so during this time, the teacher, teaching a lesson. While teaching the lesson, the group of students will be there. Then you have a peer observers. They will be observing seriously about all the teaching steps, how you are practicing the component, your skills, whether you are practicing this behavior or not. And supervisors will be seriously observing about each particular step of your lesson. So when they are observing, noting down whether you are practicing the skill or not. Any skill is left out, any component is left out, and any behavior is left out, or the behavior which you have not practiced, that they will note down. because video recording will have a proof, correct proof will tell you these things. Why do we video recording? Because that is more important, because sometimes the student teacher may not believe, no madam, I have done this, no sir, I have done all these things, like that way. So simply they argue these things. For that, video recording will have a correct proof. Right. ಒಂದು ನಿಮಿಷ ಕನ್ನಡದವ್ರು ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಡ್ತೇನೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯೋಜನೆಯ ಹಂತದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಯಾವುದೇ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ತರಬೇತಿಯ ಶಿಕ್ಷಕ ತರಬೇತಿಯ ಇವರು ಯಾರಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ಅವನು ಪ್ರಶಿಕ್ಷಣಾರ್ಥಿ, ಅವ್ರೇನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಇದನ್ನ ಲೆಸನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಇದು ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು 4 ಅಂಶಗಳನ್ನ ಗಮನದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಒಂದು ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ ಮೈಕ್ರೋ ಲೆಸನ್, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಣು ತರಗತಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ತರಗತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಬರೀ 5 ರಿಂದ 10 ಜನ, ಒಂದು ಜ್ಞಾಪಕ. ಎರಡನೇದು ಅವರು ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ಳದಂತ ಏನಂತೀವಿ, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾದ ಅವರು ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಅವರು ರಿಯಲ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ 8ನೇ ತರಗತಿ 9ನೇ ತರಗತಿ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರನ್ನೇ ಕೂಡಿಸ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರೆ 10 ಜನ ಅಥವಾ 5 ಜನ 10 ಜನ ಕೂಡಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಪಾಠ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಆಯ್ತಾ, ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿರ್ಬೇಕು ಅಥವಾ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರನ್ನೇ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅವ್ರನ್ನೇ ಕೂಡಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಪಾಠ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಒಂದು ಆಮೇಲೆ ನೀವು ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಈ ಪಠ್ಯ ವಿಷಯ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ಳುವಾಗ ಒಂದೇ ಒಂದು ಪರಿಕಲ್ಪನೆ ತಗೋಬೇಕು. ಒಂದೇ ಪರಿಕಲ್ಪನೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮೈಕ್ರೋ ಲೆಸನ್, ಅಣುಪಾಠ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ಳುವಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು, ಒಂದೇ ಒಂದು ಪರಿಕಲ್ಪನೆ ಇಟ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಆಯ್ತಾ, ನಂತರ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು, ನೀವು ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದಂತ ಒಂದು ಅಣುಪಾಠ ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಆ ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಸ್ಕಿಲ್ ಏನಿದೆ, ಅದು ಕೌಶಲ್ಯ, ಆ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯ ಆಧಾರದ ಮೇಲೆ ನೀವು ಈ ಒಂದು ಯೋಜನೆಯನ್ನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಪಾಠ ಇದನ್ನ ಬರೆಯುವಾಗ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ನೀವು ಎಪಿಸೋಡ್ ಅನ್ನು ಬರೆಯುವಾಗ ನೀವು ಏನ್ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯನ ನೀವು ತರಬೇತಿ ತಗೋಬೇಕು ಅಂತಿದ್ರ ಅದರ ಆಧಾರದ ಮೇಲೆ ನೀವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯೋಜನೆಯನ್ನ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಪಾಠ ಯೋಜನೆಯನ್ನ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಅವಾಗ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಬೋಧನೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ನೀವು ಆ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯವನ್ನ ಪುನರಾವರ್ತಿಸಿ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಆ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಆ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಮಾಡೋ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಯೋಜನೆ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ನಂತರ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬೋಧನಾ ಸಮಯ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಬೋಧನಾ ಏನು ಸೆಷನ್, ಬೋಧನಾ ಹಂತದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಸೊ ನೀವು ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಈ ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸೂಪರ್ವೈಸರ್ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಯಾರು ಸೂಪರ್ವೈಸರು? ನಿಮ್ಮ ತರಗತಿ ಶಿಕ್ಷಕರು ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮೆಥಡ್ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಯಾರು ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅವರೆಲ್ಲ ಸೂಪರ್ವೈಸರ್ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಅಥವಾ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಏನಂತೀವಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರನ್ನ ಅವನು ಸೂಪರ್ವೈಸರ್ ಆಗಿ ನೀವು ಆಯ್ಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಅವರು ಸಹ ಲೆಸನ್ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ನೀವು ಅವರು ಪಿಯರ್ ಸೂಪರ್ವೈಸರ್ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಸೂಪರ್ವೈಸರ್ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರು ನೋಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ನೀವೇನಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ನೀವು ಹೇಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರ ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಯಾವ ಹಂತದಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯ ಅದರ ವರ್ತನೆಗಳನ್ನ ನೀವು ಸರಿಯಾದ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ತರಬೇತಿ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರ ಇಲ್ವಾ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಅವ್ರೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಬರೆದುಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ನಿಮ್ಮದು ಪಾಠ ಮುಗಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಇದು ವಿಡಿಯೋ ರೆಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ಇನ್ನು ಯಾವುದಿದ್ರು ಯಾವ ತರ ಸಾಧನಗಳನ್ನ ನೀವು ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಈ ತಾಂತ್ರಿಕ ಸಾಧನಗಳನ್ನ ಅಥವಾ ಟೆಕ್ನಾಲಜಿ ಉಪಯೋಗ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ರೆಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಇಟ್ಕೋಬಹುದು. ಅದು ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು, ಮತ್ತೆ ನೋಡೋಣ ನೀವು ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯನ ತರಬೇತಿ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ಪುನರಾವರ್ತಿಸಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇದು ಬೋಧನಾ ಅಂತ ಎರಡನೇ ಅಂತ, ರೈಟ್. ದೆನ್ ಥರ್ಡ್ ಒನ್ ಈಸ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ ಫೀಡ್ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್. ಒನ್ಸ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ ಪ್ಲಾನಿಂಗ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್, ನೌ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಫೀಡ್ಬ್ಯಾಕ್. So now feedback here, see after teaching is over, you already know that there are supervisors who are all observing the lesson, that means teachers, and about your friends, that means your classmates are observing your lesson, right? So after this teach session is over, the trainee is given feedback. The videotape recorder is being used, he goes to that means sometimes video recording you can take that video recording next room, you can view that that all those things, you can listen to those things whether you have practiced or not, or else right, assess his attempts at the using their particular skill. Sometimes or else you can take a feedback from your supervisors. He can compare whatever he has already planned, right? He has planned one episode, right? When you have planned an episode, automatically when he can compare, so whether based on episode I have taught the lesson, whether I have practiced all this behavior of that components of that particular skill, like that way he can understand. He can take the feedback from the supervisors as well as the peer supervisors, or he can make use of that whatever the video record which he has used, tape recorder, video recorder, whatever that he has used, he can make use of those things and take a feedback. It's very, very important. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಫೀಡ್ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇಮ್ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಕೊಡೋದು ಅಂದರೆ ಅಥವಾ ಪುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ ಕೊಡೋದು. ಪುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ ಅಂದರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬೋಧನೆ ಆದ ನಂತರ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರು ಸೂಪರ್ವೈಸರ್ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ ಮತ್ತು ಪಿಯರ್ ಸೂಪರ್ವೈಸರ್ ಅಂದರೆ ತನ್ನ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರು ಯಾರು ಅದನ್ನ ಲೆಸನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ವೀಕ್ಷಣೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರು ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬೋಧನೆ ನಂತರ ತಕ್ಷಣ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗೆ ಅದೇ ಪ್ರಶಿಕ್ಷಣಕ್ಕೆ ನೀವು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಫೀಡ್ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಕೊಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಪುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು ಅಂದರೆ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಕೊಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಹೇಗೆ ಕೊಡೋದು? ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಸೂಪರ್ವೈಸರ್ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ ಅಥವಾ ಬೇರೆ ಇವರು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಏನು ಸಹಪಾಠಿಗಳು ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಅವರೆಲ್ಲರ ಜೊತೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ ನನ್ನ ಲೆಸನ್ನು, ನಾನು ಹೇಗೆ ಮಾಡಿದೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇದನ್ನ ಅವ್ರ ಹತ್ರ ನೀವು ಈ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ತಗೋಬಹುದು, ಪುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ ತಗೋಬಹುದು. ಅಥವಾ ವಿಡಿಯೋ ಟೈಪು ಅಥವಾ ಇನ್ಯಾವುದನ್ನ ರೆಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಸಹ ಮತ್ತೆ ನೀವು ನೋಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಬೇರೆ ರೂಮ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ಬೇರೆಲ್ಲ ನೋಡಿ ಸೂಪರ್ವೈಸರ್ ನೀವೆಲ್ಲ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡು ನೋಡಿ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಈ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ತಗೋಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. It is very important. That means if no video tape recorder is there, either supervisor or peer supervisors or both may go out to a different room along with a trainee. They discuss the extent to which the trainee could demonstrate the skill in the light of the previously decided model. So based on the whatever the episode which you have prepared, the model, that is model is that lesson plan, whatever the players planned already. So that means whether I have done the lesson based on that planned episode or not, you can check. So through the video tape record, in case it is not there, take your friends and supervisors and both of them, you can go to other room and discuss about the lesson, take a feedback, proper feedback, and all the details, what I have done mistakes or anything, any components which are not touched or not practiced, you can discuss. Anything you have done mistakes or anything goes wrong in the wrong direction, or you have practiced only one particular behavior, one particular component, so other things left out. So to check about all these things, what you can do, you can take a proper feedback with all about the feedback from, the sources of feedback may be many, right? They can be pupils, you can take your pupils, take peers, about supervisors you can self, even you can evaluate himself, whatever things you have done it, you can self evaluation can be done. Video recording, that also gives you some sort of feedback. So these are all different types of feedbacks or sources of feedback. One is self, the other one is you can take feedback from peers or supervisors, or video recording can be done. So with all these things, you can take a feedback. It's very, very important. This stage is very, very important, because if you take a proper feedback, automatically you can improve the practicing skills. So that gives you base for next replanning your lesson. In case if you have not practiced, so that helps you to prepare about the next episode, or rechange your plan, and you can re-practice the lesson to acquire that particular behavior. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ನಿಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ವಿಡಿಯೋ ಟೇಪ್ ರೆಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಆದರೆ ಒಂದು ಕೇಸ್ ಅದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದರೆ, ಯಾವುದು ರೆಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದರೆ, ನಿಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಸೂಪರ್ವೈಸರ್ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಅಥವಾ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರು ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಕರ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬೇರೆ ರೂಮ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ಡ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕಷನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಎಷ್ಟರ ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಆ ವರ್ತನೆಗಳನ್ನು ನಾವು ತರಬೇತಿ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಂಡಿದ್ವಿ, ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ, ರಿವೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದರೆ ನೀವು ಯಾವುದೇ ಮಾಡೆಲ್, ಒಂದು ಮಾಡೆಲ್ ತಯಾರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ಯಲ್ಲ, ಒಂದು ಲೆಸನ್ ಪ್ಲಾನ್ ಬರೆದಿರ್ತೀರ, ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಲೆಸನ್ ಪ್ಲಾನ್, ಅದು ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಮೈಕ್ರೋ ಲೆಸನ್, ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಲೆಸನ್ ಪ್ಲಾನ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಅಣುಪಾಠ ಅಂದರೆ 5 ನಿಮಿಷಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗುವಷ್ಟು ಪಾಠ ಅಷ್ಟೇ, ಆಯ್ತಾ, ಬರೀ ಒಂದೇ ಒಂದು ಪರಿಕಲ್ಪನೆ. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನ ಎಷ್ಟರ ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ನೀವು ಪಾಠದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದು. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ನೀವು ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ದು ಕೌಶಲ್ಯ, ಅಂದರೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ಏನನ್ನು ಕಲಿಬೇಕು, ನಿಮ್ಮ ವರ್ತನೆಗಳು ಏನು ಕಲಿಬೇಕು, ಅದು ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಸೊ ವೆದರ್ ಅದು ಕಲ್ತಿದ್ದೀನಾ ಇಲ್ವಾ ಇದನ್ನು ಕೇಳ್ಕೋಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ, ಯಾವುದು ಕಲ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ ಅದು ಉಪಯೋಗ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ, ನೀವೇನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಮತ್ತೆ ಅದನ್ನು ರೀಪ್ಲಾನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಈ ಒಂದು ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಅಥವಾ ಪುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ ತರಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಏನೇನು ನಿಮಗೆ ವಿಧಾನಗಳಿದೆ ಅಂದರೆ, ಮೊದಲನೇದಾಗಿ ಸೂಪರ್ವೈಸರ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ಬೋದು, ನಿಮಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಪುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ ಕೊಡ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ತನ್ನಕ್ಕೆ ತಾನೇ ನೀವೇ ಅದನ್ನು ಪುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ನಾನು ಏನು ತಪ್ಪು ಮಾಡಿದೆ, ವಿಡಿಯೋ ಲೆಸನ್ ನೋಡಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ತನ್ನಷ್ಟು ತಾನು ಏನು ತಪ್ಪು ಮಾಡಿದೆ ನಿಮಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಆಯಿತಾ. ಸೊ ಆ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ವಿಡಿಯೋ ರೆಕಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನೋಡ್ಕೋಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ನೀವು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರು ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಚಿಲ್ಡ್ರನ್ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ನೀವು ಈ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ತಗೋಬೋದು. ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಅನೇಕ ವಿಧಾನಗಳಿದೆ. So this is very, very important about taking a feedback stage, right? The observation performed are filled by the observers, either qualitative and quantitative. In the feedback session only, what they do is, so their supervisors or peers or maybe pupils, they are filled pro forma. What is that pro forma? The already pre-decided one pro forma will be given to supervisors. The supervisors will be mentioning about the qualitative as well as quantitative feedback. So qualitative means what? Explanation regarding your lesson. They'll explain. So when you are now teaching this lesson, this skill is not practiced. This component is not practiced. Like the way providing some sort of explanation. Quantitative is giving some marks or maybe tallies. Tallies are some marks. That is quantitative. So feedback can be given. Maybe prescriptive and descriptive. Maybe very short. Maybe in detail the feedback can be given. So this session may be termed as view session or assess session, feedback session, or also what is it called as critic session. Critic session. Time devoted for this generally 10 to 15 minutes. So that means when we are this session completely, so feedback session is very important during this session. View session is called as a view session, or as assessment of your lesson, or feedback what we are giving, providing you some sort of feedback, suggestions to your lessons. Criticizing your all the teaching stages, teaching this thing, whether you have practiced or not. Then time devoted normally 10 to 15 minutes you can discuss, finalize lesson. Right. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕನ್ನಡದವರು ನೀವು ಯಾವುದೇ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವೇಷನ್ ಇವರು ಇರ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ, ಇವರು ಸೂಪರ್ವೈಸರ್ಸ್, ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಅಥವಾ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಯಾರೇ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅವರು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಕೆಲವೊಂದ್ಸರಿ ಒಂದು ಗುಣಾತ್ಮಕವಾದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಇದನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಅಥವಾ ಪರಿಮಾಣಾತ್ಮಕ ಅಂದರೆ ಗುಣಾತ್ಮಕ ಅಂದರೆ ವಿವರಣೆ ಕೊಡೋದು. ಕ್ವಾಲಿಟೇಟಿವ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಅದು ವಿವರಣೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಮಾಡೋದು ಡೀಟೇಲ್ ಆಗಿ. ಕ್ವಾಂಟಿಟೇಟಿವ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಒಂದು ಪರಿಮಾಣಾತ್ಮಕ, ಯಾವುದೋ ನಂಬರ್ ಒಂದು ಸಂಖ್ಯೆ ಕೊಡೋದು. ಇವನು ಫಸ್ಟು, ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್, ಥರ್ಡ್, ಅಥವಾ ಟ್ಯಾಲೀಸ್ ಹಾಕೊಡೋದು. ಟ್ಯಾಲೀಸ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇದ್ದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದಂತೆ, ಟ್ಯಾಲೀಸ್ ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಇದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸೇ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಈ ಥರದಲ್ಲಿ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಿಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಟಿವ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಟಿವ್ ವಿವರಣೆ ಕೊಡ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ಚಿಕ್ಕದಾಗಿ ಸಹ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ಸೆಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ವೀಕ್ಷಣೆ ಒಂದು ಸೆಷನ್ ಅಂತೀವಿ, ಅಥವಾ ಮೌಲ್ಯಮಾಪನ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ, ಅಥವಾ ಪುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ, ಅಥವಾ ಏನಂತೀವಿ ವಿಮರ್ಶಾತ್ಮಕ ಒಂದು ಹಂತ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು, ಕ್ರಿಟಿಕ್ ಸೆಷನ್. ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನ 10 ರಿಂದ 15 ನಿಮಿಷದಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಫೀಡ್ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಸೆಷನ್ ಮುಗಿಸಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. So this is the third stage about feedback session. Next is about the replanning. See, once the students has taught and taken the feedback about the details of his skill and behavior, he has to replan the lesson based on the feedback given, based on the feedback received from a video recorder or maybe the supervisors or peers. So based on the feedback, the teacher has to plan the lesson. That means during this session the trainee goes to another room where he replans and restructures his lesson in the light of the feedback received. That means the teacher is going to, again the trainee is going to replan or restructure his lesson based on the whatever the feedback you received from the supervisors. Right. So then this session is known as a replan session, restructure lesson. So because again to touch or practice all the components, so you will replan effectively in the replanning stage. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪುನರ್ ಯೋಜನೆ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ್ದು ಈ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಪುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ ಬಂದಿದೆ ಸೂಪರ್ವೈಸರ್ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಅಥವಾ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಅಥವಾ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ವಿಡಿಯೋ ಟೇಪ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಲ್ಲ, ಅದರಿಂದ ಏನು ಈ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಬಂದಿದೆ, ಏನು ಪುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ ಬಂದಿದೆ, ಅದನ್ನು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ, ಇನ್ನು ಮತ್ತೆ ಪುನರ್ ಯೋಜನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಅವ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಲೆಸನ್ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಲೆಸನ್ ಯೋಜನೆ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅವನು ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ತುಂಬ ಸುಲಭ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯಗಳಲ್ಲಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಎಲ್ಲ ಒಂದು ವರ್ತನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಅವನು ಸರಿಯಾದ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ತರಬೇತಿ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ಳೋಕ್ಕೆ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ರೀತಿ ಅವನೇನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ, ಪುನರ್ ಯೋಜನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಅದನ್ನ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಈ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಸರಿಯಾದ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಪುನರ್ ಯೋಜನೆ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಅವನು ಮತ್ತೆ ಪಾಠ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಥವಾ ಆ ವರ್ತನೆಯನ್ನು ತರಬೇತಿ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ಳೋಕ್ಕೆ ತುಂಬ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದನ್ನೇನಂತೀವಿ ಪುನರ್ ಯೋಜನೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪುನರ್ಬೋಧನೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಅವನು ಪಾಠ ಮಾಡುತ್ತಿರ್ಗಾಗಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಇದು ಯಾವಾಗಂತ ಬೋಧನೆ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೇನಾಗುತ್ತೋ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಬೋಧನೆ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೇನು ಮಾಡಿದರೆ, ಯಾರು ಸೂಪರ್ವೈಸರ್ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಯಾರು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪಿಯರ್ ಸೂಪರ್ವೈಸರು ಅಥವಾ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ರೆಕಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಅದೇ ಆಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಇದ್ದೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಪುನರ್ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡೋದಷ್ಟೇ. ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿ ಅದೇ ಸಮಯ, ಅದೇ ಚಿಲ್ಡ್ರನ್ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೂ ತಗೋಬಹುದು, ಅದೇ ಚಿಲ್ಡ್ರನ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಆ ಥರ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಪಾಠ ಮಾಡೋದು. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ರೀಟೀಚ್ ಸೆಷನ್ ನಾರ್ಮಲಿ ವಾಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್, ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ರೀಟೀಚ್. ಒನ್ಸ್ the replanning is over, it's very important to reteach. So in the reteach what happens, so normally where the trainee reteaches to a different set of pupils, right? So or sometimes same students, the same unit, right? Or maybe can teach, right? Then which is restructured, similar supervision of the lesson goes on as in the teach session. So similar, like supervision will go on similar way in the teach session. So this is called as a reteach session. I think you all understood about reteach session. It's very simple. Same thing will go on, right, as it is in the teach session, right? Then re-feedback, same thing. The feedback what they have done, again we will be re-feedback. In the re-feedback means, so again whether the teacher trainee has practiced or not, whether the student teacher is practiced or all these skills or not, all the components are there. To understand these things, then reteach will be given. After reteach session, there will be re-feedback regarding the lesson, whatever it may be, the sources of feedback. This session is termed as review, reassess, re-feedback, a re-critic session. All these may be together called as one micro teaching cycle. See, that means now you understood. One is about the planning stage, teaching stage, right? Feedback, right? Then reteach, replan, reteach, re-feedback. 6 stages, right? So re-feedback. After reteach session, there will be a re-feedback regarding about the lesson, whatever the teacher has, what is it taught, right? Based on the sources, whatever he has used. Say, made the feedback, whatever the sources, like peers, maybe supervisors or videographer or anything like whatever they have used, so that can be taken. That this session is called as a re-feedback session, reassess or re-critic session, right? So all these together called as a complete cycle, one micro teaching cycle. So re-feedback, ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಪುನರ್ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಕೊಡೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಪುನರ್ ಪುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ. ಪುನರ್ ಪುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ ಅವನು ಯಾವುದೇ ಹಿಂದಿನ ತರಗತಿ ಹೇಗೆ ತರಬೇತಿ ಕುಡಿದ, ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಹಂತಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಇದಾಗಿತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಫೀಡ್ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಸೆಷನ್ ಏನೇನು ಉಪಯೋಗ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಸೋರ್ಸಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ವಿಡಿಯೋ ಟೇಪ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ಯಾವುದೇ ಇದ್ರೂ ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ನೀವು ಯಾವ್ದು ಸೂಪರ್ವೈಸರ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅವ್ರದ್ರೆ ಸೇಮ್ ಅವ್ರು ಈ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ತೊಗೊಂಡು ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಅವರು ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಸರಿ, ಈ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಪುನರ್ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಅಥವಾ ಪುನರ್ ಪುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಪುನರ್ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ಪುನರ್ ಕ್ರಿಟಿಕ್ ಸೆಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಇದನ್ನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಇದು ಒಂದು ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣವಾಗಿ 6 ಹಂತಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಪೂರ್ಣಗೊಳಿಸಿದಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇದು ಒಂದು ಸೈಕಲ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಒಂದು ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಸೈಕಲ್. ಏನಂದರೆ ಇಲ್ಲೇನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಒಬ್ಬ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿ ಅಥವಾ ಶಿಕ್ಷಕ ಅಥವಾ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ ಟೀಚರ್ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ದಿಸ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟಿಂಗ್ ದ ಅನುಬೋಧನೆ ಪೂರ್ತಿ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ಸ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ what is the stages of the micro teaching. Now let us see the model cycle, complete model. So planning stage, reteach stage, feedback, replan, reteach and re-feedback. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡೋದು, ನಂತರ ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಫೀಡ್ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಸೆಷನ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಅಂದರೆ ಪುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಪುನರ್ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಪುನರ್ ಬೋಧನೆ, ಪುನರ್ ಪುಷ್ಟೀಕರಣ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಇದು. ಇದೇನಿರುತ್ತೆ, ನೀವು ಅನ್ಲೆಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಅಂಟಿಲ್ you what is it completely practiced about the components, you can continue the cycle. You can keep on continuing the cycle, practicing again and again. What happens? You will become, acquire that particular components. You acquire the skill. When you acquire the skill, automatically that can be adopted in your macro teaching, because it's very important. Macro teaching, right? Here, some of the things to be read. What is it? You have to keep in mind what are the things are there. One teacher is micro teacher. Even teacher becomes a micro teacher. Anu shikshaka. Lesson is a micro lesson. Anu pata. Ili practicing one skill at a time. That means ಒಂದೇ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯ ರೂಢಿಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳುವ ಅವಕಾಶವಿದೆ. So practicing only one skill, that is called micro lesson, micro teacher, and practicing only one skill, limiting the content to a single concept. ಅದು ಒಂದೇ ಒಂದು ಪರಿಕಲ್ಪನೆಗೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಇದೆ, ಬೇರೆ ಯಾವುದು ಹೆಚ್ಚಿಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲ. ರೆಡ್ಯೂಸಿಂಗ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಸೈಜ್ 5 to 10 pupils. ತರಗತಿಯ ಗಾತ್ರವನ್ನು 5ರಿಂದ 10 ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಕಡಿಮೆಗೊಳಿಸೋದು. ರೆಡ್ಯೂಸಿಂಗ್ ಡ್ಯೂರೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಲೆಸನ್ ಇಸ್ 5 to 10 minutes. ತರಗತಿಯ ಪಾಠದ ವೇಳೆ 5ರಿಂದ 10 ನಿಮಿಷ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. Therefore micro teaching is a miniaturized classroom teaching. ಆದ ಕಾರಣ ಇಲ್ಲೇನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅನುಬೋಧನೆಯು ಮಿತಗೊಳಿಸಿದ ಬೋಧನೆ ಎಂದು ಕರೆಯಬಹುದು, ರೈಟ್? Then here in the complete cycle, how much time it takes normally? See here, when you're going for undergoing this complete micro teaching cycle, so planning session may be 6 minutes, sometimes may take more also, 6 minutes. Ili yojane anta 6 ನಿಮಿಷ. Then teach session will be 6 minutes, feedback session 6 minutes, replan 6 minutes, and reteach 6 minutes, and re-feedback session 6 minutes. So total 36 minutes. 36 minutes. So complete cycle which requires 36 minutes. Here same thing, like plan session, the teacher plans a micro lesson with a concept based components of a skill. Based on the component, the teacher will be planning the lesson. That is called as a planning stage. Teach session, the teacher teaches the concept 5 to 10 pupils, right? then the lesson can be observed by the staff supervisor or a peer supervisor with an observation schedule. This is called a teach session, where the teacher is going to teach the particular lesson in a 5 to 10 minutes in 5 to 10 pupils, only one concept, right? That way you plan the lesson, planning the lesson, right? Then feedback session, Pustikarana. The staff supervisor and peer supervisor will discuss the lesson on the acquisition of the components of the skill. That means they will be discussing, giving a feedback. Supervisors, peer supervisors, video. That will be same thing. That will be the cycle what I am talking to you, right? So that is same thing what I have discussed. Same thing here. Replan session. That means again the teacher reincorporates the suggestions given by the staff supervisors and peer supervisor and replan the micro lesson. So that right. Reteach session, Punarbodhyama. The pupil teacher reteach the restructured lesson to a different set of pupils or some other same peer group, right? That way we'll be completing the and re-feedback session. After reteach session, there is a re-feedback session. The lesson will be discussed by the same supervisors. This is to know what extent the trainee master the skill as suggested in the feedback session. So thus the pupil teacher acquires the skill to the expected level. That means re-feedback, right? That way this completes the cycle. So planning, then teaching, again reteaching, replanning, re-feedback, like the way this cycle completes about these things. Right? This is not required. Anyway, we'll see. Mainly you have to keep in mind. So micro teaching is not completing the concept. Another thing, some of the points to be kept in mind normally, because here, see, you should not worry about the. Now tell me. That is not required. This you want? This one. Which one? Hello? Can you hear me? Previous, another, this one. This one. See, this is, I'll tell you in short this thing. Stages of micro teaching means here, knowledge acquisition phase. Normally what happens, see the teacher trainee, first of all, before going to micro teaching, we'll acquire about the information about what is a skill, what are the components, or what is that each component is. Like, he is trying to acquire the information about the complete skill. Or your information related to that skill, right? Maybe take for example about talking about introducing a lesson. When you introducing a lesson, so information related about, see, that is called, this first stage is knowledge acquisition phase. The teacher trainee will acquire the information related to that. Then see the skill acquisition phase. So this skill acquisition phase is nothing but where the teacher trainee will be practicing the skill again and again. That means using a micro teaching cycle. That means we will practice skill acquisition phase. We will be trying to acquire again and again. So you will become expert in that skill. So later third stage is making use of this whatever the acquired stage in the transfer phase. The transfer phase here will be using in a real classroom. Go to real classroom and you will make use of all these skills and combine together. What you say? Integration of all these skills and teaching a lesson. That is called the transfer phase. Transfer phase. Have you understood? See, that means knowledge acquisition where is trying to acquire about the information related to the skills and skill and component. The skill acquisition phase is that teacher trainee is trying to practice the lesson and again and again. That means the episode based on episode and taking a feedback, re-feedback, you will acquire the skill. Right? Next is transfer phase. Transfer phase where the teacher trainee will go to, once complete the course, he will go to school, he will integrate all the skills into general classroom. That is called transfer phase. Transfer phase, right? That is the only thing. That's nothing else. Okay? Understood? Kalyani? That's all. Nothing else. Okay? Right? Here I was talking to you about the micro teaching, right? See here there are some points to be kept in mind before teaching, before practicing the micro teaching skill. Micro teaching is not for completion of the concept. See, you should not think about I have to complete this concept, I have left over this concept. No. Need not worry about the concept, need not worry about the content, what you have taught. Right? But your main intention is to practice the skill. That is more important. ನೀಡ್ ನಾಟ್ ವರಿ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಎ ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್. ಅಣುಬೋಧನೆ ಪರಿಕಲ್ಪನೆ ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣವಾಗಿ ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡೋದಲ್ಲ. ಇಲ್ಲೇನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅಣುಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪರಿಕಲ್ಪನೆ ಅದು ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಬೋಧನೆ ಮುಗಿಸ್ಬಿಡ್ಬೇಕು. ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ನಾನು ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮರ್ತೋಯ್ತು, ಅದು ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ನಿಮಗೆ. ಅಣುಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯವನ್ನ ನೀವು ಆ ವರ್ತನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಕಲಿಯೋದು ತುಂಬ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಸೊ ಆ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಯಿಂದ ನೀವು ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಏನು ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಪರಿಕಲ್ಪನೆನ ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣವಾಗಿ ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದು ಅಂತಿದ್ದಿಲ್ಲ ಆಯ್ತಾ. ನೀವೇನು ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದು. It is only to acquire the components of the skill. So main idea behind that is to acquire components of a skill. The skill, right? You have to acquire the components. Not that about the completion of a syllabus. So ಒಂದು ಕೌಶಲ್ಯದ ಘಟಕಾಂಶವನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಮಾತ್ರವಾಗಿದೆ. ಇಲ್ಲೇನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇವತ್ತು ಪಡಿಗೆ ಒಂದೇ ಒಂದು ಕೌಶಲ್ಯವನ್ನು ಮಾತ್ರ ಕಲಿಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಒಂದು ಕೌಶಲ್ಯ ಆ ಕಾಂಪೊನೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದೇ ತುಂಬಾ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. Select only one concept to practice a skill. One day, that means you have to select only one particular concept. Don't take many subunits, what is the concept. Only one concept enough. Because 5 minutes you are going to teach, not much. So, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದೇ ಒಂದು ಕೌಶಲ್ಯ ತರಬೇತಿ ಪಡೆಯುವಾಗ ಒಂದೇ ಪರಿಕಲ್ಪನೆಯನ್ನು ಆಯ್ಕೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ನೀವು ಒಂದೇ ಪರಿಕಲ್ಪನೆ ಇಟ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. So, content is negligible. We can use in any way to acquire the components of a teaching skill. So, our main idea behind that about the micro teaching is so to make you to acquire the skill, acquiring the components of the teaching skill. Main on components, the practicing of the components of the skill, that's more important rather than about the completion of the syllabus. So then this is not required, this is only I have given. So what is the concept? Because concept is not required about all these things, right? That's only micro teaching. Right here, say what are the observation? Now you have to talk about, see what are all the observation you can make use of. What are the different sources of observation? So one is self. That means, so you yourself can evaluate your lesson whether I have done right, wrong, or whether I have practiced all the components or not. You can evaluate. You can write down where you have gone wrong. One is self-evaluation. Then pupils, your students are the best judges. They will also give you feedback in case wherever you have not practiced, where you have gone wrong. Like that way, you can take a feedback from your pupils. Video recording, that also can be done. Video recording that gives you authentic, very good source of taking a feedback from video recording. Observation by the supervisor. Supervisor will use some particular proforma and he will observe the lessons and he will note down all the in a descriptive or a prescriptive or maybe in a qualitative and quantitative manner. You will write down your observation. Supervisors are nothing but your teachers, your method masters. Observation by peers. So that means your friends, right? Your fellow mates, that those students can be used as observers. They also take from using proforma, they will also observe this. And observation proforma should be prepared. It's very, very important. See, whatever the lesson when you are observing, there should be one observation proforma must be used. Because for every skill, they'll give you observation schedule. So keeping that schedule, you have to write down, then you have to put your observations. Write down all observations. Then if number of tallies are more or frequent in the practicing the component, that means, so you'll be more, when the tallies are more, you'll be more frequently practicing that component. That means you'll be good in acquiring that kind of skill or behavior. So more number of tallies, in case they put a tallies in the proforma or in the observation proforma. So if more number of tallies are there in the proforma, then definitely we can say that. So you'll be frequent in your practicing the component. You are good in the acquiring the behavior. So if no tallies, if there are no tallies, your practice component become nil. Your nil, right? That is okay. Then teaching skills by B.K. Pasi. Right here, see there are many skills he has suggested by to practice. So among them you will be taking only 6 skills. If you get time, definitely you can. In the library we have a micro teaching book. You can go through all the skills. Get ready, understand about the skills. In case if you are not practicing, just go through skills. It's very, very important for next in future when you go to schools. Very important because these are the skills which will be used in the macro teaching. You can make your teaching enhance your teaching more effective and more interesting to the children. That way, there are many skills. 18 to 20 skills are there. Among that, writing instruction objectives, introducing a lesson, fluency in questioning, probing questioning, explaining the lesson, illustrating with examples, stimulus variation, silence and non-verbal cues, reinforcement, increasing pupil participation using blackboard, achieving closure, recognizing, attending behavior. So these are the some skills. Still more number of skills are there. So what among them, so the important skills we have taken to practice and give orientation and also demonstration these skills, right? You have to practice and you have to learn. One is about skill of illustrating with example, skill of explanation, skill of introducing a lesson, skill of probing, questioning, skill of using a blackboard, skill of stimulus variation. These are the skills, 6 skills we are training you, we are giving you orientation, demonstration, right, and make you to practice all the skills. That's very important. Because these are all very important skills. Other skills also important. Whenever you get a time, free time, you can go to library, take a books and go through all the skills. Very important. So this will be because of a time constraint, we are teaching only these skills. Right. So this I will not teach you about all these things, about the components of microteaching, all these components that they will teach you. This will be oriented by all the teachers. These components will be teaching by all the teachers. Okay. So this completes about this thing. Okay. So bridge the gap between micro teaching and macro teaching. Micro teaching link lesson and in the macro teaching. That means so all the skills whatever you are learning here, that will be integrating all in the macro teaching. Macro means the general classroom teaching. So there you are going to include all these things, and you what do? You will integrate all these things and you teach the lessons. So the integration, that's later we'll tell you how to do it, because in the 3rd semester you will be going for practice teaching. During that time you have to make use of all these skills. Very important. That way if you learn here, this becomes easy for in the next future. So this completes all about the general information, micro teaching, and about the meaning of micro teaching, definitions of micro teaching, and about what is teaching we have learned, what is teaching, and about the stages of micro teaching, and about what are the precautions so about the taken to while preparing a lesson, all these things, and cycle, what is the micro teaching cycle we have learned. So this completes about the micro teaching cycle. Okay.